I'm looking at this so-called transcript of this telephone conversation between President Zelensky of Ukraine and Donald Trump. And I want to point out a couple of things that I think are important and consequential. And one of them in particular, I think, is the big deal, the real big deal here that is being completely ignored by the media, or at least was up until the time I went on the air an hour ago. Maybe they've started talking about it. I haven't seen anything about it in the Chiron on CNN, but who knows? Haven't been watching every minute I've been on the air. But if you read this out loud, this is a conversation that started at 9:03 a.m. on July 25th and ended at 9:33. It's a half-hour long conversation. And if you read it out loud slowly, it takes 10 or 11 minutes. So there's 20 minutes of content missing here. Now, there are people who, particularly on Twitter, have been saying to me, well, it's not a transcript. When I read this, it reads more like a transcript than like notes, right? I mean, I've taken notes in meetings. I've taken notes in board meetings. When you take notes, you say, so-and-so said, maybe we should think about this. And such said, well, but the larger consideration is, and you just, you hit the high points like that. This is, looks to me like word for word. It starts out, congratulations, this is the president, congratulations on a great victory. We all watched from the United States, and you did a terrific job. The way you came from behind somebody who wasn't given much of a chance, and you ended up winning easily. It's a fantastic achievement. Congratulations. That is a transcript. Those are not notes. So we have a transcript here that is missing apparently 2/3 of its content, or at least half of its content. So where might that content have gone? Well, speaking as a writer, I've got 25, I think, books in print, and have written, a few more than that. I can tell you that there is this cool little device that writers use where you want to delete some content. For example, I'm working on this book on monopoly right now, and last week I was writing a chapter for it about the founder's perspective on monopoly, and Thomas Jefferson wrote this long letter about monopolies in commerce, and I mean in fact he demanded of James Madison that be something put into the Constitution, a ban on monopolies in commerce. And so he writes this long letter to Governor Morris, and there's a great paragraph, a great couple of paragraphs in there that kind of opens with something and closes with something. And then there's a bunch of stuff in the middle where he just kind of wanders all over the place. So I took the first couple, the first half of a sentence and the last half of a sentence, 3 paragraphs down, and I put them together and I put ... between the two of them, indicating that a bunch of content is missing here. It's called an ellipsis. If you're not, if you didn't take English in high school, and, a lot of us didn't, then I get it. Just plug that into a search engine, ELLIPISIS, ellipsis. And, it'll pop up and say, deleted content. So if we're asking the question, where is the deleted content in this transcript? Given that the transcript represents about 10 or 12 minutes of conversation and it was a 30-minute talk, where is that content? Then what you look for are ellipses, right? That's how in both literature and apparently in transcripts, you delete material. And there are 3 separate places in this transcript where there are ellipses. And I think that they're really important places. I mean, keep in mind, we're missing at least half the conversation. And so here comes the first ellipsis, right? Here's President Zelensky is talking to Trump. This is on page 2. You can, it's only a 5-page document. It's on the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post if you want to print it out and read along with me. The bottom of page 2, Zelensky. I would also like to thank you for your great support in the area of defense. We are ready to continue to cooperate for the next steps. Specifically, we are almost ready to buy more javelins I'm assuming he's talking about the missile system, more javelins from the United States for defense purposes. Trump replies. Okay, so the president of Ukraine has said, we're ready to give you guys some money to get some more weapons, you know, basically bringing up the topic. This is after they've been basically glad-handing each other for a page and a half about you're wonderful, no, you're better, you're wonderful too. And so Zelensky says, you know, we're ready to take those javelins. And Trump replies, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country's been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. Ellipsis. Now, CrowdStrike was the company that did some of the initial work, as I recall. No, CrowdStrike was the group who tracked down the hack on the DNC, was it not? I need to Google this. And I'm pretty sure that CrowdStrike was the company that did the analysis, or perhaps they were the ones who did the analysis on Hillary Clinton's. We'll find out. Sean is looking it up while we talk. Anyhow, he says they say CrowdStrike. And then there's just like an ellipsis. There's a bunch of missing content there. So is he talking about Hillary Clinton's servers? And if so, does he think that she had a server in Ukraine? CrowdStrike was the group that analyzed Hillary Clinton's servers on behalf of whom? Thank you. So, number one, we've got this giant hole where he basically brings up Hillary Clinton. Or maybe the dossier. And then he says, after that, what I think is probably a massive chunk of deleted content, then he says, I guess you have one of your wealthy people, ellipsis. Now, here we're talking about Ukrainian oligarchs, the people who are paying Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's campaign manager, who's in jail for taking money from Ukrainian oligarchs. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, ellipsis. What's missing there? And then he goes on, he says, the server, they say Ukraine has it. Really? So this goes back to CrowdStrike, which goes back to Hillary Clinton. But we don't know, because apparently a whole bunch of stuff is missing. Now, somebody tweeted to me saying, a representative of the White House said those ellipses simply mean he paused. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that anymore. I mean, this is Sharpiegate all over again, right? So he says, I guess you have one of your wealthy people, ellipsis, deleted material. The server, they say, Ukraine has it. There are a whole lot of things that went on, the whole situation. I think you're surrounding yourself with some of the same people. Oh, really? I would like to have the Attorney General call you or your people, and I would like you to get to the bottom of it. Now, keep in mind, this is all after Zelensky says we'd like our weapon systems. And then he references Robert Mueller. He says, as you saw yesterday, that whole nonsense ended with a very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller, an incompetent performance. But they say a lot of it started with Ukraine. Whatever you can do, it's very important that you do it if that's possible. So that's the first instance where there are ellipses, and there are two of those on page 2. And then the next one is on page, actually that's page, it's labeled page 3, I'm sorry, that's page 3. The next one is on page 4. And again, it's Donald Trump speaking, and the ellipses don't happen when Zelensky is talking. They only happen when Trump is talking. And I think this is the biggest part of this story, other than the fact that we're talking about this transcript rather than talking about the whistleblower, which is really what, you know, now the White House is going, oh, no, you're not going to get the whistleblower stuff. Anyhow, Trump goes on, he says, the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son. The Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that, so whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. He's talking about our Attorney General, Bill Barr, who apparently has not recused himself. And then Trump goes on, Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, ellipsis. Now, what did he say there? So if you can look into it, maybe we can use this as a club to beat up Joe Biden. Or if you can look into it, maybe we can prove that, you know, he's a terrible vice president. Or if you could, you know, what was he saying there? So anyway, that, you know, there's lots and lots of, you know, pontification and speculation about all the other pieces of this and what all is going on with this. But I really think that we need to be paying attention to the fact that this is not a complete transcript. This is less than half of the conversation. And the three juicy parts where he's talking about oligarchs, about CrowdStrike, and about Biden are the places where we see the ellipses.